Welcome to this edition, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Rough 'em Up Podcast is back at it once again. The A-Train Arlington Lane. Joining me as always is my partner in crime for this show, Mr. Cullen Watkins. Cullen, how you doing today, man?
I am doing good because for the first time in what seems like forever, we're here after a Roughnecks win.
That's right. Got a W.
It wasn't the most pretty, but it's a win is a win. We're gonna take it. We're gonna take
it. Exactly. A win. This definitely is a win. Houston's back on the winning track, winning 17-15 over the San Antonio Brahmas. So they have swept that series with San Antonio. So they also continue with a 5-0 division record against the South. And they just claimed, after that game, they claimed a spot in the South Division Championship coming up on April 29th. Now, what it leads to is the last two games of the season. They have Vegas coming up this weekend on Saturday. They open up the XFL weekend, and then they will close out the year in Arlington for potentially the top spot in the South Division Championship, which will give them I think they would get home field advantage for this. It's quite high. It hadn't yet been finalized, but they're getting all the things together. But we're hearing, especially on our end, there is a home playoff game for the division winners of both North and the South. So right now, looking pretty good for the Houston Roughnecks.
It absolutely is. And these final two games, this win against San Antonio was just huge. We'll go a little more into the game. Talking about how it wasn't pretty by any means. Of course, it was a overtime win. 2 overtime games in one weekend, which was crazy. Of course, the St. Louis and Vegas game was in overtime for those who don't know. But beating San Antonio, huge. Because like you were saying, Arlington, more than likely, it's looking like right now, Houston's going to come away with the home field advantage for the South Division Championship game, which is going to be huge, right? It's going to be huge. And we're going to have to watch that Week 10 matchup, too, against the Arlington Renegades, because Arlington, Luis Perez, they looked a lot better than they did with Drew Plitt or whoever was in at quarterback. So Arlington, Houston, more than likely going to be the South Division Championship matchup. I think we'd all be really surprised if it somehow didn't happen. Arlington, that Luis Perez trade, it looks like it put them in, put them in the championship spot. But Arlington, what did you think about the San Antonio game? Because I'm curious. I have my own thoughts about it, but what did you think?
From what I saw, first off, congratulations to those that tuned in. They had peaked at 2 million viewers. So that was a good, strong presence for that. Yes. I think the final tally for that game was 1,006,000, I think is what the number was. But still, when you put a game over the air on network television, there's a good chance you're going to get a greater rating than what you get on cable.
Yeah.
But it was a great game. I think it was an ugly game. Let me put it like that. Let me just be honest. It was ugly. And 17-15, they only had 160 total yards. But that's all thanks to the defense, that were able to get them up close, get them back in the red zones. Special shout outs to CJ Brewer and Trevon Mason. I got a chance to interview those guys a couple weeks back. And Mason had the interception, and then you had the big man run. You can hear him on the sidelines talking about the experience. And it was hilarious all by itself. And you just seeing he didn't wheeze, but he was out of breath from all of that. And he was kind of mad that Jack Cohn actually tackled him and was able to keep him from scoring a touchdown. So, I mean, they were able to get the job done. Of course, Brandon Silvers had a couple of touchdowns, but he threw a couple of picks himself. And so we did see him back out on the field. And that just let me know that's who Wade Phillips is depending on to be the guy to get him to potentially an XFL championship. coming up next month. So not saying that Cole McDonald did not do a good job. He did a decent enough job, but you knew Silvers wanted to be the guy to get this team across the threshold. So, granted, the total yards wasn't the best. It didn't. The running attack wasn't there, and maybe that was kind of by design because of how the defense played so much. So, offense not the best, but hey, they still was able to get the win, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah, the defense was crucial. I mean, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions. That's phenomenal, you know. And
Yes.
sure, you know, Jack Cohen, he's not the best quarterback, but still, just like the whole game as a whole, a win is a win, an interception is an interception. Doesn't matter who it's against, but those 6 sacks, you know, San Antonio couldn't get anything going. They did have a pretty decent running attack. I do give them credit with that. Ran for 128 yards. That was really the only thing that had them going. I think it was it's what really tied the game for them. And with Silvers, I still think he's the guy. He did not have the best game by any means. I'm curious what you think about this. There's still not the guy that John Trey Kirkland was. There's still not the go-to guy. I'm finding, even though Michael Bandy, he led the team in targets with 9. So nice to see the new pickup sort of picking up a lot of targets. And I was a big fan of him in the spring league as well. He played with Brandon Silvers and AJ Smith, but it worries me that Max Borghi was our leading receiver for this week. Worries me a lot. The offense should have scored more points. Simple as that.
I agree to that effect. It could have been Brandon Silvers finding timing, you know, again, because he had been out for a couple of weeks. And so just getting back into the swing of things, and as progressing into the regular season, about to close out, getting into the playoffs, it's good that he was able to find his running backs, you know. So you got to think of that as a positive there. You can't be like, hey, it was just the running backs that was getting the ball. Somebody got the ball, and I think that was the big thing, is making sure that somebody got it. Granted, Deontay Burnett only had a couple of receptions, maybe 8 yards or so, but he had a touchdown. So that's a promising sight. Of course, Garrett Owens got into the play as well with a 5-yard, but that's all based off what happened on defense. So you want to make things easy for the offense. And so when you're able to get plays like that, you can't be mad. Granted, we didn't get to see anybody get over 100 yards receiving or rushing. Okay, that's fine. As long as you're able to get into the end zone, that's what matters the most. And then also being the second game to go into overtime. Granted, I understand it shouldn't have went to overtime, but hey, it did. And the fact that Houston was able to get over the hump, got the 2-point conversion, and then made the 2 stops to make it work, or 3 stops, I think it was, because I think he got to the end. So,
it was 3.
And so that was the key thing here, was they were able to get the job done on defense. And that's where we need to get back to, is where they were at defense. The offense, as long as Brandon Silvers is managing the game, I think the Houston Roughnecks will be fine. Defense, and granted, they still had the little ticky-tack penalties because Gene Harris was getting hit with a couple of those. It made the game very interesting against San Antonio, where they almost looked like they were going to give them a win and make the whole the XFL South race even tighter. So at this rate right now, we're looking at right now they have 2 games ahead on I think 3 games now on is it 3 games?
In the regular season?
3 games. I say 2 games. 3 games on San Antonio. So they're out. I'm already labeling them out. They haven't labeled them out officially, but I'm labeling them out. So we got Arlington and Houston looking at an XFL South Championship game.
Which, that's a solid championship game, you know? And if you didn't catch the Arlington game, God, who did they play? It was Orlando. Orlando, sure, they didn't play good by any means. I think Dormady had like 5 turnovers or something. But they look pretty good. So that will be an exciting South Division Championship game. I'm still giving us the go-ahead, though. I still think we should be winning that South Division Championship, especially with how our defense played. I'm really hoping the saying defense wins championships. I hope that's the case here, because in that case, we're looking pretty good. But Arlington, you did bring up the penalties. Was it just me, or were there a lot of penalties in this game?
Very much so. And discipline, I know Wade Phillips liked to have a nasty defense, that type of thing. And much kudos to Brian Stewart and the job that he's doing as defensive coordinator. It's all about being what's the word? I just had it. Oh, discipline. Discipline was the word. Making sure that you're disciplined. And a lot of times we're looking at the refs as like, come on, y'all. Like, really, this is getting ticky-tack. Like, it's getting out of control. And there's a mix of both. Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do with the ref side, and then on the other end, you're looking at the same thing for the defense of the secondary. Because I didn't hear many penalties from the front 7, but I was definitely hearing them from the secondary.
Yes,
they grabbing and pulling and trying to get away with it, and I'm so glad I don't have to hear Hines Ward whine against Houston at this point anymore. Because they're gone. All right, they're out of here. But again, the defense is what made this a great win for them, and so they were able to get the stops when needed, and they're sitting pretty right now. And again, in the South Division, I just love saying it because they're on top.
And it's just so nice to hear the Houston Roughnecks clinching a playoff berth. I've been waiting for that since 2020. I'm wearing my sidearm slinger shirt, PJ Walker. I've been waiting to hear that since 2020. So it was great to hear it. In Arlington, so last episode, we had Evan on here, of course, and you and Evan were saying that this week needed to be a statement game, a statement win. I wouldn't really say it was a statement win on the offense, but like you said, it was a statement win on the defense. We saw the defense where they were at the beginning of the year when we won those 4 games in a row. And to talk about San Antonio, if you're a San Antonio fan watching this, y'all were, in my opinion, one solid quarterback away from being in the playoffs, right? I really like San Antonio's team, but their quarterback play was just really bad this season. So shout out to all of y'all. So this game coming up against Vegas, this is interesting, though. This is really interesting. They gave St. Louis a run for their money. They did. Vegas looks really good right now. So what are your thoughts on this upcoming game? We're opening up week 9 of the XFL, of course, at TDECU, the final home game. What are you expecting, Arlington? Because I don't know what to expect.
Vegas is here to play spoiler. I mean, they don't have really a lot to play for. They've been eliminated from playoff contention themselves. So now it's all about, hey, if I can't get in, you can't get in. But the difference is Houston is getting in no matter what. But they want to, cause a bit more chaos. So if I'm Vegas, I'm playing for the playoffs regardless. And Jalen McClendon didn't have a bad game, but it wasn't the best, and he's showing that in a couple of games that he can be a problem in this league. And he does good with his legs. He has a great arm.
Yes.
And I'm like, there could be a lot of balls going down the field if Houston secondary is not prepared. Ray Sherman has done a phenomenal job with Jalen McClendon so far, and wanting to help him become a better quarterback and a better player. And so he's the X factor in this game, and Houston is going to have to get to him. Granted, this will not be like the Brahmas getting 6 sacks because Jalen can get on the move if need be, because he was a problem against the Battlehawks. I mean, he had him on the ropes, got him down at one point in the fourth quarter. It was 17-8. So that lets you know that Vegas wasn't no joke, and they were trying their best to stop the Battlehawks from getting anywhere near the XFL North Championship. So at this rate in the season, Jalen I think he's fighting a lot more for more reps. I feel bad though, because Brent Hundley, the guy that they said was going to be the starting quarterback, got overtaken by the third string quarterback. So, but at least they found their guy. And that's the X factor, is McClendon stopping him. All facets of the game, whether it's through his legs, you got to rush him. You're going to have to put a nice, good pair of blitz packages together to make sure that you slow him down.
For sure. And I'm not going to say McClendon is Ben DiNucci, but sort of same sort of playing style to some degree. Both mobile quarterbacks, and I feel like that can cause a lot of issues because you find guys open when you're on the run, like DiNucci did in the Roughnecks game. But I think we need to remember, and the team needs to remember, that, again, this Vipers team just started looking good these past few weeks because of their quarterback change. St. Louis was better, DC was better, and Seattle, all better teams than Vegas was. So I really hope we stick to our guns and just play our game of football. And I'd love to see Brandon Silvers get back on track. I'm going to be really looking for the offense. I think our defense, they'll play their game. Let's just hope they don't get a lot of penalties. They'll play their game. But the offense, I want to see improvement. I want to see a week 2, week 3 Brandon Silvers instead of last week Brandon Silvers. You know, I want to see no interceptions, right? We should be able to go through this game with no interceptions and like 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns. I just want to see a good offensive game. So that way, going into week 10, Arlington, we're riding high, because I wouldn't say we're riding too high right now. I wouldn't feel too confident going into Arlington right now. This is the game, right? This is the game that the offense needs to step up. Honestly, they do. And I like to see more running too. I want to see more running. I love our running attack.
Of course, we got to get the offensive standpoint on point, basically. So, and this is a game where, if heaven forbid Houston loses, they will have lost each game to a North Division opponent. So they need this win just to say, hey, we can play with the North. Granted, you couldn't be able to hang with the other 3 teams that are in good position for the playoffs, even though 2 is only going to make it. But my thing is, you got to get you some confidence against a North Division opponent. So you say that you did it, because you're going to have to play against a North Division opponent for the championship on May 13th. It's a totally different ball game then. So that is where all aspects, offense, defense, and even special teams come into play here, because we didn't mention about special teams, but that's all part of the factor. But everybody knows that. So at this rate in the season, as we get into week 9, you got to have a damn near a flawless game against Vegas. It's going to be tough, but it's possible. So that is going to be the major thing here is, can offense sustain? Can they move the ball down the field? Can they get big plays? Will there be, and can the defense sustain like they did against the Brahmas? Because it's not the Brahmas this time. You're playing against a different type of offensive line. You're playing against a different quarterback. And then special teams do their job to making sure they get the ball upfield and give great field position to start for Brandon Silvers. I still think Cole McDonald is still going to be in the mix. Just that he just didn't play against San Antonio, and I think they were doing it just to see how well Brandon could play. Granted, they got the win, so interesting to see what happens as we go into this week 9 match. You got to use Cole McDonald. Got to keep the 2 quarterback system, I still think, in this case.
And what are you thinking about potentially resting some starters.
Play them.
Is because I was about to say you're playing for home field advantage. That's not locked in just yet.
Play them. You got to play them. I know it's a short season, and they've been playing back-to-back weeks all year long. Play these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds crazy and that they should have rest, but everybody's want to get a chance to get their shot. If they want to get something if you want to get a ring of some sort, you got to play your guys, play the best guys that's out there. Now, if it's getting out of control, then sit them. Mm-hmm. But it's only if it's getting out of control. If it's like 40-0, 50-0, something like that. Because you got to remember the XFL, 18 points is just 2 scores.
Mm-hmm.
So you're never out of it. If you're in a 3-score game, it's 27 points. So if it gets that high, I guess 27, then I say you can rest them. As long as everything is still the same, yeah. But other than that, you got to play your guys, no matter what.
Because that's been something I've been thinking about, and even in like DC's point of view, I'd still want to see these guys. I've never really been a big fan of playing your second string quarterback, or like, because they could easily throw in Cole McDonald like they did against St. Louis and say, oh, rest Brandon Silvers. But this was the first game back against San Antonio, so I want to see him get hot. And two, I think for Coach Phillips, I want to see him finish off this season with 2 more wins.
Yes.
2 more wins, because every single comment on Instagram, on Twitter, is all about, oh, Coach Phillips can never finish a season. His teams always fall apart at the end. This is his chance to say, my team, we're going to finish up this season with 3 wins, and we're going to go into the playoffs on a winning streak. So I want to see that so bad. So bad.
And I agree with you. Like, Houston has an opportunity where they can finish off an undefeated record against the division, which is great. Mm-hmm. But you also want to at least get you a win against the North, because winning streaks bring confidence to these teams. And, each and every day they keep adding more, removing less. I know I just heard about the release of Kerry Vincent, defensive back, and, they're bringing in more offensive line help to make sure that Brandon Silvers is still on his feet at the end of each play. So that's going to be the key here. And I'm wishing all the best for Wade Phillips, because I'm looking forward to seeing not just this home game, but one more home game afterwards.
Oh, I hope so. Now, this is sort of off topic, but I know a lot of my friends have been asking me, what guys in the XFL are possibly going to go to the NFL and stuff. So I think it's an appropriate time to ask, we're week 8 now.
Uh-huh.
Who are some names on the Roughnecks who possibly could be getting a NFL shot? I know this is out of nowhere question, but lately I've just been getting buttloads of those comments being asked to me. So I'm curious. I'm curious what you say.
Trent Harris is going to be getting a look, I
the
believe.
sack leader.
I think Gene Harris is going to get a look as well. He'll get a few. So is Trent. Trent will get a few looks.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jonte Kirkland, despite the fact that he was injured, he'll get a look, because he did a phenomenal job in the first few games before getting hurt. I think he should. Just going back and looking at it, Jack Heflin should get a look. Trayvon Mason and CJ Brewer should get looks.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and anybody, I know offensive linemen, they don't get a lot of credit, but many of those guys should get an opportunity. Max Borghi should get another look at. Maybe Bryson Aline get a look at.
Mm-hmm.
As for the quarterbacks, maybe Silvers is 50-50. McDonald the same. 50-50. If they get it, good. If not, I think they should come back to the XFL, play another year. I really do believe that just need a little bit more tinkering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got the game is just making sure that it sustains and it's the same. So that way, when they get looked at, say, okay, this is what I'm getting from a consistency, or they're better or they're worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 50-50 for the quarterbacks, in my opinion. If those two guys get a shot, great. If they don't get a shot, I think it's still good because you still have something to fall back on with the XFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I've been thinking a lot about next season, but I've been trying to remind myself we still got the championship game. I need spring 2020. What? I mean, be spring 2024. I need to calm down a bit. I need to hold my excitement in a bit.
Hold it together, Coleman. Hold it together, man. Hold it together, man.
So, of course, the final two games against Vegas and Arlington. We pretty much covered everything we had about the Roughnecks, the San Antonio game. Win's a win, and then Vegas and Arlington. You got it. I care more. Actually, I care about both games. I was going to say I care more about the Vegas game because it's a North Division opponent, but I don't want to lose to Arlington. We're not losing to Arlington. We're not. We are not losing to Arlington. And another thing too, I want to see how's viewership going to do now that the USFL is kicking off too. I just remembered that this Saturday, USFL kicking off. You think it's going to matter?
Okay. It's going to matter to the USFL for sure. that's a fact. But the XFL, many that their games are on cable. I don't think, if I'm looking at this correctly, I don't think there is a over-the-air broadcast game for week 9. Okay, there is one. It's the Vegas game, Vegas and Houston game. So, but that game's at 11:30 compared to, I think it's like 3, maybe 4 o'clock for the USFL. So they're not going head to head against each other. But what it will showcase is, all right, hey, can we break over another million viewers again? I think that's the main thing here for the XFL, especially when they're doing broadcast network games over the air. So a network like ABC, they can get 1 million. They did before. They were able to peak over at 2 million during the game against San Antonio. So they get it again. They're one of the top teams in the division. So why not? Granted, it's an early start. Oh boy, I have to look forward to this myself.
I was just about to say.
Good grief. But I'm hoping to see many fans out there. I want to see a lot of children that love football that come out there too. You know, let's get 20,000 in before this final game of the season. Okay, this is it. This is for a place potentially to get a home game again in the playoffs, and we